Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 141. Audio source: wuxia-world-audiobook.com. I choose the path I walk. Xie Lian suddenly remembered something. That day, at the Great Martial Hall, Lan Chong randomly accused everyone, but she never pointed her finger at Feng Xin, who was standing in the most conspicuous spot. Jian Lan immediately denied it. He's not. Fu Yao was all face full of disbelief too. It seemed he hadn't known that Feng Xin and this woman had any connections either, and was also dumbfounded. Hearing her speak, he finally snapped out of it. He hasn't even asked anything, so why did you answer so fast? Please. It's obvious what he was going to ask, Jian Lan said. I'm telling you, he's not. However, Feng Xin was looking at the fetus spirit. What did you call him? Quo. That name seemed to have some sort of special meaning. Jian Lan opened her mouth then closed it, no longer willing to argue, and said frustratedly instead, "What's a big man like you doing talking so much? If I said he's not, he's not. Who the hell's that eager to recognize their sons?" Feng Xin replied angrily. What are you saying? If he is, then of course you'll of course what? Recognize him? Raise him? Jian Lan countered. Feng Xin was stuck. He lowered his head and looked at the deformed little monster hanging off of his arm. That fetus spirit seemed to bear a particularly deep hatred for him, and latched onto his arm, tearing and chomping, crying wah wah wah. Feng Xin didn't know what to do with him. His bloody red hand clenched into a fist. Seeing how he was stuck and looking like he couldn't accept the truth, Jian Lan immediately spat. I already said he's not, and you're still pushing. He's got nothing to do with you, so stop worrying. Qi Rong yapped. Bullshit. He must be. See, I wasn't wrong, it's the spawn of a pleb. Everyone come check this out. Feng Xin's own son was carved out of his old mommy's belly and turned into a little ghost. I can't believe people actually pray to this shitty sun-gifting Nanyang. Watch out, the more you pray the more your sons are gonna be. Xie Lian raised his hand and Rui sealed Qi Rong's mouth, and Jian Lan also stomped on his head heavily a few times, making him cuss louder. Just then, Ji Yuzi blearily woke up and saw Qi Rong was getting trampled, and immediately lunged forward. Don't step on my dad. Seeing Ji Yuzi holding Qi Rong's head, Jian Lan couldn't stomp anymore. Instead, she changed course and seized that fetus spirit's two blanched little legs and bolted, yelling angrily. I told you to stop biting. So disobedient. Feng Xin was spacing out and didn't manage to catch them in time, and Xie Lian cried subconsciously. Rui, chase. Rui went to chase. However, once that white silk bandage flew out, did Xie Lian remember that it was binding Qi Rong. He looked back, and sure enough, Qi Rong leapt to his feet with Ji Yuzi on his head. Looking pleased, he announced, "This ancestor's free again." Seeing that Feng Xin finally snapped out of it, Xie Lian changed his instruction. Rui, come back after all. Thus, Rui came flying back, and Pa soundly slapped Qi Rong a big one. Qi Rong was just humming, having bounced back, but was whipped to spin 3 times on the spot and tumbled, covering his face. After sprawling on the ground for a moment, he suddenly went berserk, and seized hold of Rui, shouting, "Even a rag like you dare hit me." This time, Rui was stuck in his clutch, and twisting around, it couldn't twist itself free. It was like Qi Rong's strength suddenly exploded. Xie Lian was about to take care of him personally when Qi Rong suddenly realized there's a small child on his head. And he instantly yanked Ji Yuzi down, holding him like a shield to protect his person. Don't come a step closer. Come here and I'll strangle him. Hey, look behind you, watching that fucker is gonna die. Shocked, Xie Lian whipped around, and sure enough, Cheng had his brows tightly knitted. His dropped hands were trembling, like he was forcing himself to endure something. When he saw Xie Lian look over, he immediately shouted, I'm fine. The arousal of demons. The tremors this time seemed to be stronger than all the times before. In a split-second decision, Xie Lian went back to hold him. Using this chance, Qi Rong hurriedly escaped with Jiu Zi in his hands. Lan Chong also seemed to be suffering a throbbing headache, covering her ears, and that fetus spirit, under such aggravation, was biting and tearing even more violently. Feng Xin had been bitten over 10 mouthfuls now, his blood pouring unceasingly, but he still didn't dare to hit him, using his hand to tightly grab hold of Jian Lan's arm. That fetus spirit, however, didn't hold back, and swung its claws towards Feng Xin's face. That clawed scratch was nasty, and Feng Xin grunted, covering his wound, unsure if his eyes were injured. Xie Lian was mortified and was about to send forth Rui, but Jian Lan stomped her feet in anger. "If you keep this up, I'm going to get angry." Only after hearing his mother yell did that fetus spirit jump back into her arms, obediently curling up into a bundle. Jian Lan gave Feng Xin a look and gritted her teeth. "He has nothing to do with you. I'm warning you, don't bother us." Then, with one hand hugging her head and the other hugging her son, the mother and child fled. Seeing this, Fu Yao cried, "Let me go." Feng Xin half knelt on the ground, covering half his face, and Xie Lian crouched down next to him with watching in his arms. "Are you alright? Let me see your wounds. Were your eyes scratched?" Blood dripped from the cracks of his fingers, and Feng Xin replied with his eyes closed, "No, don't ask me." Feng Xin, Lan Chong. The lady Jian Lan, what was she talking? Xie Lian asked. Yet before he finished, Feng Xin swung out his fist. A giant crack, and the tree next to them was punched in half. He roared, "I told you not to ask me." That voice was mixed with resentment, and Xie Lian could tell that resentment was directed at him, and he couldn't help but be taken aback. However, Watching commented coldly, "Who turned your wife and son into ghosts? If you've got fire, go burn the right person." Hearing this, Feng Xin raised his head slightly, his eyes red, watching Fu Yao. Taken aback, Fu Yao was instantly furious. "What are you looking at? You don't actually think it was my general? What is this bloody luck?" He only saw that that woman was a remnant citizen of Xianle and had some relation to the royal family, that he'd lent a helping hand. He wanted to save that fetus spirit, but who knew it was deeply ignorant. Not only did it not want to be saved, it even turned into a fierce. Nothing good came of it, but he ended up stepping in shit. Had he known, he wouldn't have bothered. That brat doesn't even know who gave birth to it, and you think it knew who killed it? Perhaps it was because too many disheartening things were bothering his mind recently. Even his speech was a little vulgar in words. Your general calls this bloody luck with just this bit. Then can people who suffer even worse luck even live on anymore? Hua Cheng said. Feng Xin shook his head and murmured, "Why is it like this? How did it become like this? Why don't you take care of your injuries first?" Xie Lian tried. "Did you bring any bombs?" Feng Xin glanced at him and said darkly, "I'm fine. Don't mind me." With his hand covering his wounds, he didn't bother managing it and stood up, stumbling away. Xie Lian and Fu Yao called after him a few times, asking if he was going back to the heavens or going to give chase, but he didn't answer at all, and soon, his silhouette disappeared. Fu Yao struggled again and cried angrily, "Your Highness, if you old senior won't give chase, will you at least let me?" Xie Lian snapped out of it, and after contemplating the cons and pros, he said, "All right," and actually did let go. Fu Yao didn't think he would actually comply, and he worked out the kinks of his wrists, humping. "Why are you so willing to let me go now?" Xie Lian rubbed his forehead. "The upper cord is probably even more of a mess than imagined. Sigh, I now think that, rather than encouraging your general to return, he should act freely outside instead." After a pause, he added, "What are you going to do now?" I don't think the fetus spirit was slandering only for the sake of escape. There might be someone in the background manipulating it. Fu Yao dusted off his sleeves and said, "Who cares what's going on? It's going towards Mount Tonglu, so I'll think after capturing it." Then, he left in a hurry. The inn where various groups of people gathered was suddenly quiet and deserted. Xie Lian turned around, checked over that collapsed little cottage, flipping and pulling aside the beams and straws to look around, and made sure those monks and cultivators really were only knocked out and would probably come to soon. Reassured, he left too. After walking for a while and leaving the barren hills behind, they finally found a real inn, and the two stopped to rest. Xie Lian felt like the past few days was a complete mess, and he sat at the window so lost in thought. Rui curled around his arm, rubbing against him gently like it was purring, and Xie Lian scratched it absent-mindedly. Suddenly, Hua Cheng came to the windows, bathing under the same moonlight, and spoke up. "It has nothing to do with you." Xie Lian was shaken out of his reverie, but soon understood what he meant and shook his head. "I don't know if it really has got nothing to do with me. Feng Xin must have befriended Lady Jian Lan after Xian Le had fallen and before he ascended himself. Calculating the time, that was during the years of my first banishment. But that doesn't mean you're at fault for how they've turned out," Hua Cheng said. After some thought, Xie Lian said, "San Lang, I've never talked about my banishment, have I?" "No," Hua Cheng said. "I've never told anyone. I hope you won't mind if I drag you to listen to me babble," Xie Lian said. Hua Cheng lightly pushed himself up the windowsill and sat too. "I won't. Go aad." Xie Lian spoke as he chased his memories. "Back then, the only vassal I had left was Feng Xin, and life was difficult. I started out as a martial god, and a lot of the possessions I had as a crown prince were all pawned." Hua Cheng chuckled. "Including Hong Jing, right?" Xie Lian smiled gaily. "Ha, that's right. Jun Wu can't know this, do keep that a secret for me. And those tens of golden belts, they were all pawned too. And so, Feng Xin took one of your golden bets and gifted it to Lan Chong?" Hua Cheng asked. Xie Lian shook his head. "I don't think that's the case. Feng Xin wouldn't take my stuff so frivolously. It was me who told him to sell it and keep the money for himself." Truthfully, this was him plain giving Feng Xin a sum of money for no reason. At the time, Feng Xin declined it for a long time, but in the end, because Xie Lian was relentless, Feng Xin said, "I'll keep it for you for now. It's shameful to say, I made him sell it for money to keep for himself, not just out of guilt but fear too." With all the devotees gone, only Feng Xin still treated him like the flower-crowned martial god and His Highness the Crown Prince. Only then was Xie Lian alerted to the fact that even though the two had grown up together, Feng Xin being his trusted servant and bodyguard, not once had Feng Xin received any sort of exceptional rewards. Suddenly, Xie Lian knew fear. Fear that Feng Xin would also think this life was too hard and stop following him. Thus the meaning of that golden belt wasn't reward, and it wasn't purely just a gift or compensation of labor either. There was also the intent of a little bit of groveling and bribery. In the illusion created by that feat of spirit, Xie Lian saw a protection charm, and it was probably something Feng Xin gifted to Jian Lan. After Xian Le fell, all of Xie Lian's temples and shrines were burned down. Not a single soul believed in the crown prince of Xian Le anymore, and his protection charms were all seen as trash. However, Feng Xin was still determined and tireless in handing them out, telling Xie Lian, "Look, you still have devotees." But Xie Lian knew deep down that those protection charms were most likely all thrown away. Xie Lian spoke slowly. "Through so many years, I never knew if Feng Xin liked anyone. I never asked, and I never took notice. After all, he was the darling of the heavens since birth, high and mighty, and Feng Xin spun around him like he was the world so naturally, so how could he possibly have his own life and have his own personal heart? It might not sound nice to gift a girl something someone else gave you, but at the time, that golden belt was probably the best gift Feng Xin was able to give. After all, we were frequently missing meals. Feng Xin wasn't someone who'd spend wastefully. So, it's easy to imagine just how much he liked Lady Jian Lan. If he liked her so much, why did they split? Whether if that fetus spirit was Feng Xin's son, if it was that period of poverty that made Feng Xin lose the girl he loved, no matter what, Xie Lian wouldn't be able to forgive himself. However, Hua Cheng said, if he liked her but in the end they separated, then it only shows what they had was only like. Xie Lian smiled wistfully. San Lang, things aren't always that absolute. Sometimes, it's not up to you to decide if the road is easy to walk. Hua Cheng said softly, I might not be able to decide whether the road is easy or not, but whether I walk it is entirely up to me. Hearing this, Xie Lian blinked, and felt like a knot in his heart was untied. He stared at Hua Cheng wordlessly. Hua Cheng tilted his head. Gurgur, am I wrong? Watching his twinkling black eyes, Xie Lian suddenly grabbed hold of him and placed him on his lap. Ha, San Lang, you're very right. Hua Cheng seemed to be stunned by his actions, and allowed himself be lifted high in the air. Xie Lian laughed. To say something shameless, what San Lang just said and the way you said it really quite resembles me when I was younger. Hua Cheng seemed to have gotten used to being hugged around by him like this, and he raised his brows. Wow, what a dream. The two of them played around in the room for a while, and Xie Lian threw Hua Cheng onto the bed then climbed in himself, facing the ceiling. He was about to speak when suddenly, Hua Cheng sat up and his pupils shrank, his eyes turning sharp as he looked across the room. Xie Lian immediately sensed something wrong and instantly sat up too. The moment he saw, cold sweat covered his body. Silently and soundlessly, there was another figure in the room since who knows when, sitting by the table with a pot of tea already brewed, the scent of tea fragrant. Yet, he had never noticed. Xie Lian couldn't help but feel a chill go down his spine and pointed Feng Xin forward. "Who is it?" That man replied gently. "Don't be afraid. T. Xianla." The figure and voice all belonged to a youth. Exceedingly familiar, and Xie Lian sighed a breath of relief, brushing back strands of hair that had come loose from playing around earlier behind his ears, his heart still thumping. "My lord." However, before his breath was fully exhaled, he yanked and pulled the blanket and buried both Hua Cheng and his body under. "Why has my lord descended?" The hand under the blanket held Hua Cheng down tight, gesturing for him not to worry. Junwu leisurely poured 3 cups of tea before rising to his feet. "You didn't come back, so naturally, I had to come down personally to see." His hands were clenched as he spoke, walking towards him, and slowly, from the shadows, something was pulled out. Xie Lian's eyes followed down his white robes, and saw Junwu had in his hand a sword. Startled, he instantly jumped off the bed. "My lord, I can explain." Yet unexpectedly, behind him, Hua Cheng pulled off the blanket and sat up cross-legged, his arms resting casually on his knees, and he smiled. "I don't think that's necessary." MXTX Author's Notes. Xie Lian and Mu Qing trained under the same cultivation path, and they're both cultivators. However, Feng Xin had never registered at the Holy Royal Pavilion, so he's not a cultivator. He's just a simple grassroots martial god, so he doesn't need to follow the same purity mandates as Xie Lian and Mu Qing. End chapter.